Town councilors, we are going to convene the ordinance committee meeting now. If anybody stays in the audience, we're going to ask you to just quiet down while we conduct the business meeting for the ordinance committee. Thank you. Appreciate your... It is Monday, April 24th, my husband's birthday. What a fun way to spend it. It's 7:12 p.m. I'm Laura Dancho, and I'm going to chair the regular ordinance meeting. It's 7:12 p.m. and we're called to order. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes of March 27th, 2023. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motioned and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Please say aye. Chair votes aye. We have 8 of us here right now. Item 3.1, an ordinance amending sections 203(9)B, 17, 19, 20 of the Town Code of Stratford. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve and send item 3.1, an ordinance amending section 203-9B, 203-17, 203-19, 203-20 of the Town Code. Of the Town Code of the Town of Stratford, be it ordained that 203-9B of the Town Code and of the Town of Stratford is hereby amended as follows, and send it to the Council with a favorable recommendation.
I'll second.
There's a motion on the floor, and it is seconded by Ms. Shake. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chairman, I'd just like to point out that if you have any questions, Amy Noor, who is the architect of these changes, is here.
Is there any discussion or questions from Ms. Noor?
I'll just bring up, Madam Chair, through you. One thing that, Greg, we asked a question last time about the fees question. So that's, and Ms. Noor, correct me if I'm wrong, that was, the language is in here in order to avoid if every 2 years the Town Council then approves a fee hike of, say, $20 to $25, so we don't have to then go back and change the ordinance every 2 years. So it's still got to be approved by the Council and on the agenda, but that's the intent.
It comes through the Short Beach Commission, correct?
It would have to, well, fee, Mr. Town Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, fee increases have to be approved by the Town Council.
Yes, fee increases have to be approved by the Town Council. It may originate in the Short Beach Commission, but it's got to end here.
Exactly. Thank you.
Or in the Council, you know.
Any further discussion?
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, just for...
Ms. Shake.
Thank you. Just for clarification, wouldn't it be the Parks Committee, not Short Beach?
Or the starting body.
It's the starting body.
It was just an example, I think you were saying.
Is that a yes? Okay, thanks.
Any further questions, Mr. O'Brien?
As long as Amy Noor is here, why don't we have her come up and
come on
answer
up,
a couple
Amy.
questions. Well, since it's a new system, and I don't think everybody's heard about it, can you explain it, how the license plate number will be on the sticker now? And
sure. So starting a couple years ago, I started to talk to the people who do our beach stickers about creating a way to just kind of streamline the system a little bit better. So the company that we are using is the current company we use that prints our tax bills. So they are also going to now print our beach stickers, and they will be including your license plate number on your actual sticker this year. So the stickers are non-transferable. This year, the stickers, as they always are, will be mailed in your car tax bill, and they will also go out to people who lease their cars, which is new this year. In the past, if you had a leased vehicle, you had to come down to the rec department. Now you'll be able to also get your beach sticker in the mail as a leased vehicle. That's really the major change. And the other change, obviously, is to make sure everybody has their car currently registered in Stratford and current on their taxes.
Through you, Madam Chairwoman.
Ms. Shake.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor O'Brien, for giving the opportunity, because I do have a question. So if in the event that the beach sticker has for whatever reason, has the incorrect license plate, how would a resident go about
They
getting
could
the
call
correct
the
one?
rec department and speak to us, and from what I'm told, it's supposed to be pretty seamless because it's based on your tax bill and your DMV record, because they check DMV records. So if by chance that happens, you call the rec department, bring down your registration, which shows your license plate number, and we will be able to fix it in the rec office.
Great, so same-day service.
Same-day service.
Excellent.
As long as your taxes are paid.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So if somebody bought a car, say, in March, which is me, and you missed the thing...
I'll see you in the rec office.
That's what I thought.
If you don't make, I guess the way it works with the town, and I know a lot of people probably don't know this, is it's by October of the previous year. So if you bought a new car after October of 2022, then you will not get a beach sticker for your brand new car with your new license plate. You will need to come to see me at the rec office with your registration and your license plate, and your driver's license, and we can get you a sticker. We'll be able to print them in the office. But not until after July, FYI. Don't come in June because we don't have them. It's July. Because the current sticker you currently have on your car is still good through July 15th.
So, Amy, the
yes.
stickers will be for 2 years.
The stickers are for 2 years,
2 years.
correct.
Perfect.
And we are
Madam
doing a big
through you-
campaign, media campaign. We're starting the process of that now, so that hopefully people will see it, will understand it. We're putting flyers out, social media, the whole thing.
Mr. Pia.
Through you, Madam Chair. Aim, I think this is awesome. I think it's going to help, a lot of your employees during the summertime are, high school kids, college kids. So it's going to help, the 17-year-old kid working the gate to avoid confusion and arguments with people, which I think is
We hope so.
We hope so, too.
If it fails, according to John, I'm the architect, so call me.
And there's a lot of other municipalities using this
A
system.
lot of them do,
Right.
correct.
Okay.
West Haven is the closest one to us that has been doing this for years. So we actually called them, talked to them, did the whole thing. Thanks, Bill.
Perfect. Any further questions? Thank you, Amy, and we appreciate the efficiency and the effectiveness of this program. We move on to item 3.
No, you have the motion on the floor.
Sorry. All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye.
The motion is to refer this to the council with a
Yes.
favorable recommendation?
Did we say that in the motion? Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on, item 3.2, an ordinance adopting the annual operating budget for the town of Stratford for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2023, ending June 30th, 2024, and appropriating the sum of $254,271,128 in accordance herewith. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, so moved.
By Mr. Pia, is it seconded? Mr. O'Brien, any discussion?
Through you, Madam Chairwoman.
Ms. Chick?
Is this a roll call vote or no?
No, we're just moving
this
it to the town council.
Okay. Since it's not, I would just like to air my opinion or position, rather. At this time, I am going to be voting no because there is nothing in here that would reflect the ask of the Board of Education. We're still in negotiations. This is not the vote on the budget, to be clear. But there is an opportunity for that we have presented, the Democrats has presented to the Republicans of how we can meet the ask that Dr. Osunde had asked our whole body last week of finding that $1 million from the town side to move over to the Board of Education side. And we offered 2 ways of getting there without increasing the mill rate. So at this point in time, I just want to make it perfectly clear. That's why I will be voting no.
Thank you, Ms. Shake. The object of today was to move the budget forward to town council where the amendments can be made at that point. Ms. Rice.
I just want to say that I am in agreement with Mrs. Shake for the same reasons. The Board of Ed, we need to figure out a way to resolve this issue and fully fund or fund it at the requested amount as well.
Mr. Pia.
Through you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm going to happily vote yes, because that's what by charter we're supposed to do, to keep it going so that we can get to a point like we do every year in mid-May to make necessary amendments if needed, and to further wait on, as I've said for the last 4.5 years, get closest to the date that when the state legislature is finished by June 1, that we can get a very, very accurate number, and I believe in that firmly. I've said it every year, because at the end of the day, that is the way that we can make the most educated decision for all of us in town, including the Board of Ed. So I'm going to happily move it forward, as we do every year, and thank you.
Mr. Connor.
I kind of want to echo what Mr. Pia said, but really this is, this to me is bureaucratic drudgery. The last part of the budget a lot of times goes down to the last minute of the actual vote. So although I appreciate what the other side's position is, quite frankly, it doesn't matter, because the real negotiation is going to be in the last 24 to 48 hours of the budget. If you approved anything now, it would still be negotiated. You still wouldn't have enough time. I mean, you wouldn't have enough votes to still not go through this. So I understand what you're doing, but it's not going to achieve the goal. The goal is the last 24 to 48 hours. That's when the best decisions are made, and also where the votes and everything are, because people do change their names between now and then. But this is not the body that's passing the budget. Just a point of order, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, I have to agree with both Jim and Chris, but two takeaways from the speakers tonight. All favor higher taxes, and it was refreshing to hear one speaker say he recognizes the need to pay more taxes and he's willing to, so finally somebody said it. And it hit me tonight what fully fund means. Give whatever is requested without question. So, and then speaking of more money that may be coming, we received an email today from the Connecticut, the Capital Report, and the Appropriations Committee is saying they're recommending a $150 million increase to be specified education finance reform package. So we may still be getting more money.
Ms. Sutton. Oh. Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Chairman. Through the chair, may I address a couple of questions to Mr. Pia? Or excuse me, to Mr. Timiak. Apologies.
He'll come to the mic, and then you can proceed.
Good evening.
Hi, Chris.
How are you?
It's mentioned we still have a couple of weeks to go before we bring actual amendments, I guess.
And I recommend you use those weeks, right? We got to continue to monitor what's going on at the state level as far as more money coming back to municipalities, not just on the Board of Ed side, but on the municipal side as well. If we get any new grants, whether they increase the Mashantucket Pequot grant or they increase ECS, like it's something we have to monitor closely to make the right adjustments so that we have the right amount of revenue coming in from outside sources.
If we are approving our budget, give or take May 6th, but the state's not going to finalize their budget until June, how do we anticipate what they might do?
Well, the state's going to have to finalize their budget by the day they get out of session, which I think is like June 3rd?
June 7th.
June 7th, okay. So they'll have to have it finalized by then. I actually reached out to Attorney Leclerc today about the chartered required March 11th or 12th date to pass a budget. May, I'm sorry. March is the proposed. May is the final passage. So he's looking to render a final opinion. I asked him to think about all different angles. If you remember, about 2 years ago, Governor Lamont allowed each municipality to wait until, because of the COVID, wait until the state figured out what they were doing. I don't anticipate the governor allowing an extension, and the COVID regulations off the books right now. So Attorney Leclerc is looking at options for that.
Okay, has the administration, you as the chief administrative officer, entertained any discussions, held any discussions based on, for example, the mill rate, if we were to add $1 million to the current proposal?
So I was talking to Finance Director Savo today. I asked her to put together a formula for me so that I could play around with the numbers, plus $1 million. The value of a mill right now is about $4.7 million. So every $4.7 million, the mill rate would go up one complete mill. So it would go from 40 mills to 41 mills.
There we go.
So you can break it down, and it would go up about, obviously the decimal's not here, but it would go up a little, probably 0.28% or 0.28 of a mill, maybe 0.30, depending upon how the overall number affects where we're at. But it's rough numbers.
No.
It helps just noodling things around.
Thank you for that 4.7 number, and we can do fractions of that. What about the idea of mention that, say, the Board of Ed has contractual obligations, so does the town? Could the town find $1 million?
To that question, I make the same recommendation every year. When we complete the long process of the budget workshop period, I really recommend everybody think about and sort of retreat back to your caucuses and have the two caucus leaders talk back and forth about what you want to get out of the budget, what we want to get out of the budget, what we heard from the residents at the public hearing, what we heard from the department heads, and we've always recognized that the proposal is a snapshot in time. As the Board of Ed proposes their budget in early January, and then it gets passed by the Board of Education exactly 4 or 5 days before the mayor's proposals, charter, due. They're all snapshots in time from when we start grabbing all these numbers together in November and December and January. So any updates we can make, I think it's important that we do it through the amendment process. And in years past, we've always had an amendment which has been sort of an update of a budget. Hasn't always been supported by people, but we've always had an updated amendment which we've put forward, bringing all the numbers together.
Thank you, Chris. And just one last comment. Yes, the state could allocate more money for municipalities, but our Senator Kelly was quoted in the Connecticut Post yesterday as saying he's not supporting that, and in that regard, neither is the governor, the state spending cap. And maybe, because they have longer time than we, maybe they'll go along with some increase to municipal aid. So I know our two House representatives are working hard on that, as they always have. So let's hope the Senate can get the same momentum.
So one of the things I caution everybody is grabbing a press release or a comment. We don't know the area it was, but we do know that there's a ton of money which has come across the federal side, which sits in a big bucket. Whether that has to be addressed through the state budget and the state spending cap, or whether that's a separate path, I don't know. I'm sure that they'll figure all that out when they're putting their final passage together.
And final question: does the town, I forget the adjective you used, but does the town have a boatload of federal and state money that it's sitting on?
Will we still have the ARPA money, which we've been holding off for the potential purchase of an airport, which I think is a fantastic use of that money, long-term reconnecting or bringing back what's in our town should be a priority, and not having it run by another outside agency we would have no control over.
And I apologize, one more question. I want to delineate between going over budget. The Board of Ed, I believe, has some penalty if they go over budget. They can't. So what we've seen over the last few years is that they've managed their budget to within 1%. Our ordinance says they return that surplus to the town. We heard the town's received about $5 million through that. What if the town overspent its budget? Do we just go into cash reserves, or is there a, quote, penalty for us?
I don't think there's a financial penalty. I think there's it's called, basically an audit ding for the Board of Ed. They'd be dinged that they didn't spend their money within the appropriate budget. It happens. It happens at the town side. It happens at the WPCA side. It happens at the Board of Ed. With all, there's unforeseen expenses which the state has to accommodate and take into account, whether it's an unforeseen lawsuit settlement or it is what happened last year with the WPCA, where after we passed our budget, a new company took over our sludge disposal and immediately raised the price by $500,000 a year. $500,000 increase over what we had budgeted. That is a big, so then you go into cash management the rest of the year. You're like, hey, bare bones, we can't spend anything. And nothing's worse as a town administrator and having to tell a department head, hey, you guys are on conservation for the entire year. I know we just passed a budget, but we're playing catch up right now based upon not something we did. And that's one of the things you'll hear about. We're waiting to get our sludge number for next year. And that wasn't done through any malice of the town side. That was done through the purchase of another company taking over our current vendor and having a new price guide. And it's not like we have different options. There's not like hundreds of sludge facilities in the state of Connecticut. I think there's, 7, Tom? 5, 7? Yeah, there's 5, and 4 of them are owned by the same company. So it's like, even if we wanted to go to another one, well, now we have to transport it longer, and we're going to have transportation fees in.
Through you, Madam Chairwoman, since Mr. Timniak's there, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Timniak, I had sent you and Dawn an email on Friday, this past Friday, asking for the last several years of what was available from the town operating side, if there was a surplus for the town, separate from the Board of Education. And I didn't get any response from you or Dawn. Councilwoman Dancho actually answered earlier this afternoon and referred to our town website. And on the town website, I just want to clarify this with you. The only actuary of the audit that we have is the 2021 fiscal year. And from 2021, for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021, the general fund ended in a year-end operating surplus of $3,990,102. So of the $3,990,000 roughly of that year, I then went back to check to see what the Board of Ed's surplus was, just to try and get a picture. And I believe it was 1.2. So of that total, that's almost $4 million. The heavy side of that surplus is coming from the town operating budget, not from the Board of Ed. And it varies from year to year. I looked at 2020, and because it was COVID, it was different. So my question to you is, when there's that surplus, where then is that money going to pay for any expenses, if any, or is it rolling over?
Any surplus at the end of the year goes to the town reserve. Our reserve number fluctuates between $6 and $9 million. The rating agencies want to see us between 7 and 10% of our total budget. So we're underneath that, and that's how we get our AA bond rating number. And it's very hard to take surplus money when we're not at the right cap number. and redirect it back to the Board of Ed, because like it just goes from one pocket of the town to the other, and it's frowned upon by the rating agencies until we get to that number. If we had a shift in our bond rating, all of our bonded debt would cost more money moving forward, and it's one of the it's difficult to deal with the S&P and Moody's and their standards, and it's really difficult to do it when we're talking such small numbers. And I know you're mentioning $3 million. Whether that money was done through an operating surplus on the Board of Ed or the town, or we sold a piece of property that year, which we received a windfall on, we're not talking about a $10 million number, whether it's the Board of Ed at less than 1% or the town at less than 1%. So they're big numbers as a whole for residential. Commercial properties, but when you look at it in terms of the rating agencies, they look at it in terms of basically nickels, and it's unfortunate dealing with that, but it's a reality. And when we pass our CEPs to make investments in, whether it's, well, we did the WPCA with the pump stations was done through the Clean Water Funds. That was separate through the state. But when it's done for a school building or, road paving or whatever like that, we don't want the cost of borrowing in the future to go up because we're moving $900,000 from one account to another. And it riles up one of the bankers to say, hey, listen, you're not at your number, you can't be doing that. So we keep it all in our reserve.
Thank you for clarifying. Part of the reason I was asking was because we heard a lot during the budget workshops about the surplus that the Board of Ed has had varying from year to year. And either way, it was within that 1% to 2% variance. And from what you just described, that 7% to 8% is what the auditors, I guess, right? So that we get our review, we can maintain a good status, right? So wouldn't that be almost the same if the town has a surplus every year? And the surplus has been under that 7 to 8 because the last one that I saw, like I said, was almost 4 million. So
yeah, so
just want to make sure that, when we're talking about surpluses, the town also has surpluses. And of the last audited budget, the town has a larger surplus than the Board of Ed for that last one. We're not going to get the 2022 until what,
No.
July?
So, and that's another thing which I think is very important to let everybody know. We're still waiting for our audit from last July 1st.
Correct. Yep.
So we're at April. By the time that number's finalized, there's like 3 months left in the operating year.
Right.
So it's like, okay, great, I'm giving you money, you have 3 months to go ahead and use it really quickly. How's your budget look, and do you really need it in the next 3 months? Or does it just stay here, and if there's something unforeseen, which has happened in the previous
2020.
9 months, we have to make up for it with that surplus. I think that's important to do, too. Something else, not to get into the nuances of it, but everything factors into our bond rating. One of the big things is the town's ability to pay, and that number is based upon our grand list. And because we have marquee tenants in this town, and because we've had shown a very successful ladder of increasing our grand list number through businesses making investments in Stratford, that is what's given the rating agencies the calm they need to overlook the lower surplus number. And it's their formula, it's their way of looking at it, but when they look at the town as a whole, we offer a very, very good product to the rating agencies, but our big nick is the surplus, the operating surplus.
Thank you for explaining that. I think that that's helpful for myself and anyone else that's sitting here, maybe for the first or second time only. So if that's the case, then I would stand firm on still voting no at this point, because if we can go back for a 1% reduction on the town side, to move over to the Board of Education as a potential option, or we still have ARPA funds available to offset that transaction or movement. I'm looking forward to speaking with you and the caucus. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Pia.
I think what Mr. Timniak, for all of us and for anybody in this room and who will watch this recording on YouTube in 48 hours, I think what he just explained about municipal finance, bonding, and rating agencies is so critically important. And, you know, if he takes between $6 and $10 million of good cash reserve that S&P, Moody's, Fitch want to see us have, okay? That's our rainy day fund, basically, if you will. And yes, are there times where you absolutely need to spend some money from your rainy day fund? Yes, we do it with our own personal lives and our businesses, right? But at the end of the day, and I always say this from a fiduciary standpoint because that's what my hat on, right? If we have $7 million now and then to take down $3 million of that, and if that were to then, in this current interest rate environment, which is not a good time to bond, okay, to drive up our debt service by millions and millions a year, which is only going to go back to the taxpayers of raising their taxes, that is not a smart fiduciary move. I will always stand by that statement. I'm not saying you can't have conversations about what the range is. And again, I would also agree. If we had $15 million in capital reserves, I look at that as we're overtaxing the taxpayers, right? So the idea is to stay in that sweet spot that keeps the rating agencies happy, which keeps our bond premiums low, but also maintaining good cash reserves. So thank you, because that's a very articulate description of how municipal finance runs.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
I think we'll do Ms. Sutton, because she was early, and then we'll go to Mr. O'Brien.
I'm just short and sweet. So I just wanted to say that as a new person up here, this is my second budget season, and from what I know of tonight, this is just a formality for us. We've all been sitting with in many, many, many workshops through months. We've been answering our phones, our emails. I don't know about you, the last few days my phone has been blowing up off the hook. By us saying that we want to move this forward with a favorable recommendation, that's just simply saying we're ready to get to work. We're ready to roll our sleeves up and start digging into some of this. It doesn't by any means set our positions clear and state our positions at this time. I'm really looking forward to that part where actually some of our questions and maybe our input could maybe make a difference in some of these numbers rather than just delaying the whole process. So I will be voting favorably so that we can finally get to work.
Mr. O'Brien.
Chris, the ARPA funds, is there a deadline on the use? And do we already have the money, or do the feds hold it till we need it?
We have the money, and there is a deadline that the money is used by the end of 2024. So we do want to allocate it sooner rather than later, so that we can have it used, so we don't pay a penalty or face the situation of, I don't think it would be a problem, but I don't envision us being, not doing anything and having a clawback on we'll certainly act before that comes into play.
Are we able to earn interest on it while we have it?
Yeah, $1 million extra this year.
Well, that's not through.
Welcome, Ms. Savo.
Hi. The town has invested in treasuries for $12 million of our ARPA funding. Treasuries become due in May and in October.
Listen, I know that we're moving into the next phase where there's going to be lots of dialogue and lots of going back and forth and lots of proposals. I want to just be clear. My office is 100% open. If anybody needs any help explaining anything in this budget book or the way I read the Board of Ed, especially when it comes to Alliance and the conversations I've had on what that means, I'm happy to discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Timniak. Seeing no further questions, I would like Mr. Pia to restipulate the motion if possible. I wasn't clear on your recommendation to the town council.
Sure, I'll just restate the original motion. So to approve item 3.2 and send it to the council with a favorable recommendation, an ordinance adopting the annual operating budget for the town of Stratford for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, and appropriating the sum of $254,271,128 in accordance therewith.
Thank you, and Mr. O'Brien, second. Yeah, thank you. We don't need a roll call vote, right? Do a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That's 5. Any nays?
Nay.
Any abstentions? You're not allowed to abstain.
You're allowed to abstain only when you have a conflict of interest, a financial interest.
So the vote is 5-4. The motion carries. Item 3.3, an ordinance levying a tax rate. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 3.3 and send it to the council with a favorable recommendation, an ordinance levying a tax rate, section 3023-05, A of 40.20 mils on the dollar on the grand list of taxable property in the town of Stratford, Connecticut on the first day of October 2022, and B of 32.46 mils on the dollar per state statute section 12-71E on the grand list of the taxable motor vehicle property in the town of Stratford, Connecticut on the first day of October of 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Pia. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll move forward with a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. Nays?
Nay.
4. Motion carries 5-4.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Pia. The Ordinance Committee meeting is adjourned at 7:48 p.m. Thank you, everyone.